dive deep into the journeys of female founders bringing their product-based businesses to retail shelves. I'm your host, Roberta, and this week we're diving into the world of better for you indulgence with Candace Wu, co-founder of Wonder Monday, the brand that's redefining what cheesecake can be, my favorite dessert. I'm excited to hear not only the story behind the brand, but also diving into how she was able to get into what I hear is a very competitive space in grocery called the refrigeration section. Welcome, Candace.
Awesome. So good to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. So let's just dive in.
Sounds great.
Can you give us a little bit of background on what you were doing prior to starting Wonder Monday?
Yeah, before starting Wonder Monday, I had a career in tech, and I was previously in background in technology consulting at Accenture. And then right before I had quit, I was a product manager at Weight Watchers. So spent a huge amount of time in the health and fitness space.
Great. So what actually from Weight Watchers, what made you decide to lean into starting your own brand?
Yeah, so I met my partner, Jonathan, and him and I were really excited about starting a company together. And from there, we always make a joke that we go into Whole Foods as our date night spot. And as we were browsing the aisle, we really quickly realized that one of our favorite desserts, the cheesecake, was in a category that hasn't had any innovation for decades. And out of just the need for, is there a way we can create a healthier cheesecake that we would eat every single day? Wonder Monday was born.
Did you always want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, absolutely. Growing up, it was something that I was always really excited about. And I was really entrepreneurial as a kid and always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to start my own company, just didn't know the time or the place and with who. So naturally, from after graduating college, just went through all the cool, sexy jobs that people talk about, consulting, tech, and it was a good ride and I learned a lot. But when I had the opportunity to work with somebody that I was really excited about, I was like, hell yeah. So we went for it and it's been 5 years since it's been a great ride.
Wow, that's great. So once you decided that you wanted to do something and innovate the cheesecake category, what were first steps?
So we had a very unconventional start, especially for a refrigerated cheesecake baked good. We got started all online and we today ship nationwide to all 50 states. And when we started, we were like, hey, let's validate this idea. We put up a website and we ran some ads on Facebook and we really quickly found our first 300 customers and we were off to the races. So we started making cheesecakes in a commercial kitchen in San Francisco. And before we left and scaled up to a co-manufacturer, we had made about like 50,000 cakes and had shipped them and made them by hand.
Oh, wow. How did you even know from a formulation standpoint when you were getting started what to put in it to make it better for you versus the high sugar that typically a cheesecake entails?
Yeah, so all of our products are high protein, low sugar, and gluten free. And so for us, it was really clear from day one what kind of macros that we were looking for, just for our own lifestyle. So we were immediately like, this thing has to be high protein, it has to be low sugar. We don't want artificial ingredients in it. And naturally, it just became gluten free as well. So for us, it was a lot of trial and error, but I think that we just naturally love food, love consumer packaged goods, like knew what tasted good. So we just went off and made our first cake. Lucky for us, a cheesecake is something that you can bake in your own kitchen. So we made our first cheesecake and then we iterated from there.
Did you start like once you put your website up and were starting to sell online, did you immediately go to a commercial kitchen or were you selling from making it in your home for a period of time?
We went straight to the commercial kitchen. For a product like cheesecakes, it's actually, you're not allowed to bake it in your house. Most baked goods, if they're like a lower moisture product, like a cookie, you can make them in your house up to a certain limit. But for something like cheesecake, it's actually considered higher risk. And so in most states, you're not really allowed to be doing that. You see a lot of cottage bakers making cheesecakes, but technically, if the health inspector comes, not so kosher.
Were there any major changes in regards to when you were making it home than going to a commercial kitchen and nailing that recipe exactly the same?
Yeah, product has evolved a lot since we first started. I will say that when we first started, our first initial concept was a cheesecake snack bar with a chocolate layer on top. And so it had a crust, a filling, and a chocolate layer. And we were really, really excited about that. It was what we thought was like the best thing ever. And when we went to the commercial kitchen, it was really challenging to make because you literally had to like take a propane gun and like heat up a huge knife and then cut each cut the pieces of like cheesecake, because you need the knife to be super hot to like cut through chocolate, layer on top, and then, slice through. Anyways, as you can tell, that process is untenable for manufacturing at scale. And so as we grew, we realized that this chocolate topped concept was probably impossible to make, and it turned out to be true. And then we ended up in year 3 of our business, we launched our chocolate covered cheesecake bites. And so that was our ode to our first year, where we were trying to make, when we made this like chocolate covered one layered bar.
Yeah. So moving into something much more scalable and could be made a lot faster. So what was initial feedback from consumers once you got online and had those Facebook ads and were generating some consumers and some excitement?
Yeah, the feedback was instantaneous because we were getting feedback from consumers so easily. And we actually haven't shifted the formula much since, in terms of our base product. And so that's been really great to see. And I think most of what we found is that people, they tell you if they like it, buy it, if they come back and buy it. I think that's like the most important thing to listen to, versus like people can tell you it tastes good, but like the numbers don't lie. Exactly. And so that was really the signal that we were looking for, to see like if we had the right product or not.
And then from a launch perspective, how many flavors did you initially launch with?
I believe we launched with 1 flavor, and then that quickly became 3 or 4 core flavors. It was our classic strawberry, chocolate, and key lime.
Did you launch one initially to get kind of consumer feedback and understand demand?
I don't think we were super thoughtful about this piece of it, because obviously you're focused on making one SKU, which is the plain cheesecake is like the main thing.
Yeah.
And so, but we did have a variety pack in the really early days, and we still do. It's a big part. It's a big part of why people come and try our different flavors. And I think it's always 3 flavors to start. I think, yeah, it was like 3 to 4 flavors to start.
And then what about packaging? How did you come to find a packaging manufacturer that was able to create your vision?
Yeah, so for us, packaging was really important in terms of single serve. And as you know, when you go through the grocery store, most cheesecakes you find are very, very large. They're oversized. As like most households, as American households are getting smaller, there's more people are buying like grab and go items or just single serve items. And so for us, we were really looking for a co-manufacturing partner that had capabilities to make single serve cakes. And then from there, we innovated with and partner.
So how did you even find a manufacturer that could support that?
It was a lot of Google and a lot of cold calling. And I think a lot of founders will tell you they oftentimes have a very serendipitous path to finding their co-man, but it often just takes a lot of hours and a lot of searching until you do, because there's not really a yellow pages that one can go to find their manufacturing partner. And we were lucky to have found our partner pretty early on and have been working with them since.
Oh, that's great. So when you talk about single serve versus cheesecake, when you go to the store, it's usually like that multi-serve cake. Why did you choose single serve versus the opposite?
It was really based on what we wanted. It was really clear from day one that we wanted a snacking cheesecake, a cheesecake that I could eat just a little bit of and feel satisfied, versus feeling forced to have to buy an entire cake or a slice that was too large. And so we were really focused from day one of, I'm the one buying this thing. Like, what would I want? And naturally, all of the pieces just fell in. And before the consumer research and all of that, it was just clear from day one, like, this is what we want. Here are the macros. Like, here are the things that we would need to see for us to be a consumer of this product.
I will say I tried it at Expo West, me and another teammate. And to what you were saying, like, we ate it and she was like, I could eat half of this and be satisfied. Like, you don't need to have 4 servings, which I probably have had in the past, of a cheesecake. This is indulgent enough that you can really, have that one serving and feel totally satisfied. And it's better for you than a regular cheesecake.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When you said you worked at Weight Watchers, did any of that education or knowledge help you in determining like the macros or what specifically you were looking for?
Yeah, Weight Watchers, I was a product lead, leading a mobile dev team, helping members who were focused on their weight loss journey, specifically basically the page that you land on when you open up the app. So it was everything you see to help you form habits, to help you build a healthier lifestyle. And I think really what I took away from my time at Weight Watchers was the fact that there were a ton of diet foods out there, but most of them were options that most of the members didn't find very satisfying. And when I looked at the products myself, I realized that they're filled with like artificial sweeteners and ingredients that I actually don't find healthy, even though they are marketed as healthy, just because they might be lower carb or lower in sugar. Like, for example, a common artificial sweeteners like maltitol and xylitol. And these are sweeteners like I personally wouldn't eat. And they were basically predominant in all of the options that were available. And so that was like one thing I noticed about consumer packaged goods, really seeing like what the Weight Watcher members were like focused on eating and things that they enjoyed. And the other piece I would say is that I really, really was privy and really plugged into the health trends that were happening at the time and really aware of what the different diets and the fads and just really understanding that there's so many diets and there's so many fads, right? But what's here to stay is really sugar reduction, increasing your fiber and protein intake, and, people returning back to whole foods. And I think we've really seen that in the last couple of years with like the oat milk craze, but then now people are returning back to like whole milk and dairy.
Yeah.
And, instead of eating alternative meats and plant-based meats, they're like, hey, let's go back to the whole carnivore or like the grass-fed meat and the beef tallow craze. So yeah, for me, it was really being really plugged into observing, our members' health journey and their habits and the trends of what was happening at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that still stays pretty relevant today.
That's great, leaning into what's not going to be a fad, but really going to be consistent from a forward perspective.
Absolutely.
So then, did you always have a plan for the brand to go into retail stores?
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a natural progression and a natural growth curve for the brand that was just like, it'll happen when it happens. We all know that entering retail is really, really expensive. And so we were really thoughtful from day one as a self-funded brand that we have a really good cash flow situation. We have a really strong ability to scale, and that, we were working with retail partners from day one that were really excited about the brand and also really supportive of emerging brands. And so in our first year of retail, I think it's really important to like grow strategically versus take the account that like opens all the doors for you, but then
Right.
you pay all this money and then you get discontinued the year after. And so I think that was something that we were very, cautious of. And I think so far it's been proved out to be the right strategy.
Yeah. Did you have a list of retailers that were kind of your ideal that you wanted to get into?
Yeah, I think for us, we were really focused on retailers that were in the natural channel. We didn't really have a dream retailer, but if anyone from Costco is listening, Costco's my dream retailer. Yeah, we're not yet in Costco, but I think for us, it was really focused on the natural channel because that's where we knew our consumers were at. And, talking to our existing online customers, like we knew where they were shopping. And it's always a mix of like natural and conventional, folks shop at like Target and Walmart and places like that as well. But what happened for us in terms of our retail rollout was going to shows, naturally meeting the buyers. And then from there, things just kind of happened naturally. And then once we found distribution, we just grew with distribution footprint. That's kind of the way we think about growing in retail.
Yeah. What were the shows that you found were important to connect with retail buyers?
Yeah, so we found a lot of success at Expo West, which is where we had a chance to try our product, which is awesome. And yeah, I would say Expo West was definitely a great show for us. That was the year that we decided we were going to launch in retail. And through that first show was how we landed the majority of our accounts in that first year.
Wow, so that was an important show. So then after you were able to connect with some of those retailers, what were next steps in regards to having that pitch and getting another opportunity to talk to them?
Yeah, it's interesting because for us, once the buyers tried our product either at the show and they were a yes, things happened pretty quickly and there wasn't really an additional pitches or anything required. It was like, hey, send some more samples. Once that was checked off, the process to get set up with just like their preferred distributor happened. And then from there, it was like, hey, we have a launch date. And then that was it. So that was pretty smooth on our end. We haven't had up until this point too many like formal pitching that's happening. It's more buyers coming to us. They're excited about the product, or we're reaching out to them and they're excited about the product, or we're already in distribution and they're like, wait, we can pull this pull. And then from there, it just happens naturally.
Yeah. What do you think were the important factors that you brought up at Expo to get them to immediately want to buy in and be a partner?
I think it's really just the fact that we are the only cheesecake brand in the category that's innovating in the set. And it's a really, really large category. It's a $1.5 billion category that's growing. And if you ask anyone that you know, hey, can you name a cheesecake brand? Most people will either not know an answer, or maybe they'll say like, I don't know, Cheesecake Factory or Lee. And those are, incumbent brands that haven't really made any updates in the last several years. And they're also not really delivering on the brand appeal and the macros that, that modern consumers are looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that, when you just named brands, it made me just go back to your name, Wonder Monday. Where did that even come from?
Yeah. So we were really excited about reinventing the cheesecake. And so when you look at the current cheesecake set, the status quo is cheesecakes are high in calories. They are filled with artificial flavors and sweeteners, or they are just super, super big. And if they're huge, you're going to go home, eat it, and feel sick. And so we really wanted to challenge the status quo. And just like Cheesecake Mondays are a day of the week that most people dread, or, they get a bad rap. And so we thought, hey, what would it look like if the brand encompasses this ethos of challenging the status quo by creating a cheesecake that you could eat every single day?
I love that. So going back to you, going to Expo West, meeting some great retailers that you felt fit your brand, and then getting ready to launch into stores. You said that you already continued to work with your same manufacturer. Was that a manufacturer that you had already identified that they could scale at the initial onset, or how did that kind of come to fruition that they were able to support in a bigger way?
Yeah, from day one, when we founded the co-manufacturer, it was like a requirement that they had all the certifications, like they were SQF, like, because, yeah, I don't know if you are familiar, but most retailers, especially like the Costco's of the world, they have like very stringent, food safety practices and certifications. And there's some things you cannot do. So we were really, really clear from day one that we want a manufacturer that had all those things that allowed us to enter doors that some manufacturers might not. And then also that they have the line capacity to support the growth. And that was really important to us.
Yeah, that's great to be able to have that already from the onset, because some people don't, right? They just choose a manufacturer, and then when they go to retail, they have to scramble to find someone else to support a bigger order.
That's stressful.
So once you were able to get your inventory, you got the PO, you delivered it into the stores, did you also have a marketing plan that helped support that initial launch?
Yeah, so our strategy is definitely not normal. So we definitely supported our launches through social media efforts. So, targeting on Facebook ads, etc., and then also targeting through our email list, like folks that live in specific regions, and letting them know that, hey, these products are now in stores. And so that was all happening on the back. But in terms of like having a really locked in promotional plan, that's not something that we did in the first year. And I think that's probably not advised for most people. But I think what that proved out to us was that our product had a really strong velocity despite promotions. And that was really what we were expecting and looking for. And, obviously if you like promote a ton, you're going to get movement for sure. And retail data comes in pretty slowly as well. And so I think that really came from just naturally at the time, not really knowing. And then we also weren't using brokers at the time. So then brokers typically are the ones who would encourage promotions and et cetera. And the whole point of promotions and having a strong marketing plan, at least on the promotion side, is, to not get discontinued. Yeah, that's kind of been what we did up until this point. So I think what I'm trying to say is that as an emerging brand, you can still succeed if you have strong product market fit. Yeah. And obviously promotions help, but I think it was really good signal to us that, after a year on shelf, we were still seeing really strong velocities despite little to no promotions.
Yeah, that's really great, because usually, to your point, promos help in just driving trial, and of course you're going to see some sort of lift. So not having that for an entire year, seeing traction and still staying on shelf is some data to help prove that your product is something that consumers are looking for. So what about from a retail standpoint? Did you go in with the same retail that you ended in? And how did you even determine what that retail price should be?
Yeah, so our retail price essentially matched our online price for the most part. Our cakes, like, they retail for $6.49 to $6.99, and at least in the natural set. And we are online we sell for 658, and that's before shipping. So roughly it's like in the same range. And so that's really how we landed on the SRP. It was like what we were already doing. So after having, sold millions of cakes at that point, it was clear like this price point works. Obviously online people are buying our cakes in bulk, but kind of translate out to the same, like people like have a general sense of like how much they're paying per item.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about packaging? Did you utilize the same packaging when you were selling D2C versus going into retail stores?
Yes. Yeah, that was really important to us because that, in terms of like production, everything just gets produced in the same efficient way versus having different lines making different things because that would just be chaotic and probably more expensive. So really it was like the efficiencies of being able to combine our D2C business with our retail business and just being able to produce the same product at the same scale.
So now it's been over a year that you're in retail stores. Is there anything differently that you're doing from a marketing perspective in regards to awareness and drive?
Yeah, so we did some demos. Oh yeah, that's one thing I didn't mention. We did some demos in select retailers, but this year we're definitely looking to do more demos. We're running larger promotions for the first time, and we are also just doing more like specialty things that people might find, like those shelf talkers or those, I forget what they're called, but those little call outs on shelf. And so now that we are feeling, it's more established, we're, starting to do more of the new and different things that draw attention to the product.
Yeah. Are there anything that you've tried and it didn't work?
From a promotion standpoint?
Yeah, from a marketing awareness standpoint.
I would say no, because we haven't experimented too much at this point.
Okay. So you're just kind of trying different things to understand what the real drivers are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then from an assortment perspective, how many flavors did you initially launch with? And did you find success in all of them?
Yeah, so we launched with 4 flavors for retail. And those are our core flavors. And then we quickly were able to slot in seasonal flavors with most of our retailers. And so that was really awesome because, we have our pumpkin spice in for the season and we have our like salted caramel and like maple pecan that comes in during the fall. And so those rotations, in addition to our core flavors, I think bring a lot of excitement to the set and to our like overall like brand block. And I would say that that's definitely been an exciting part of seeing our products on shelf.
Yeah. Being able to like bring in some newness and some LTOs to get people excited. Yeah, that's great. Has there been anything surprising to you in regards to partnership with retail that you didn't know until your product got on shelf?
Something surprising. I would say something that we discovered is the different sets in the grocery store and how they're so different. Like at shows, we would get a lot of refrigerated dairy buyers come up to us wanting to carry our product. Right now we sit in bakery. And what we discovered was that is surprising is that despite the natural fit you might guess, like a cheesecake and dairy, refrigerated dairy, like makes sense. And like the buyers would come to us and they would be excited. What I learned about like the back end of how most retailers handle the supply chain of refrigerated dairy, what we discovered is that it's really not a fit for a product like ours that's fresh baked. And so there was a lot of learning and really understanding what set we wanted to go after in stores. Like technically there's 3 merchandising opportunities. You're either in bakery or you're in potentially refrigerated dairy or you're in like frozen. And so for us, it was like a lot of learning and figuring out the right set to be in.
Yeah. So is that something you work with future retailers and buyers to make sure that you're in a position that you feel is the most successful for your brand?
Yeah, I think it also informs like your sales strategy of like who you go after and who you pursue, like which retailers you pursue, and also like which buyer within the organization that you reach out to.
Yeah. So what does your relationship look like from a partnership with a buyer? How often are you checking in? What are those conversations like in regards to, the brand and future planning?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we definitely focus, at least on my end, I focus on sharing like data and sharing products and sharing times that we can like meet up in person. I think it's really important to get FaceTime with buyers, even if it's like to say hello or something. And I think it's just really important. So every time we like launched a new flavor online, even though I knew that they weren't going to carry it, I would reach out and, offer like this new flavor came out, like just give them product updates. I think that's always something that even if they're not interested, it's good to just hear from you.
Yeah.
And then also like if we're going to a show or I'm going to be in the area, I would reach out and like let them know that I'm in the area or I'm going to be at the show and try to plan those meetings in advance.
Yeah. That's a really good piece of advice, I think, in regards to letting them know when you're launching flavors that maybe they're not initially planning to bring in. Because as a buyer, I've definitely have experience where it wasn't initially on my, plan to bring in a new SKU.
Yeah.
Yeah, but once you're sending, and especially if you send the sample, then that could potentially change, the direction of the planning for the buyer. So I love that piece of advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what is next for the brand? Any exciting launches? What are your thoughts about? We know Costco is definitely on your list, but are there additional retailers that you're looking to expand into?
Yeah, so we're in conversations with a number of exciting retailers. So we can't share yet, but we are really looking to expand into conventional. So lots of exciting opportunities there. And I think especially with like a lower price point, we're looking to drive more volume. I think that would be really exciting because it'll be the lowest price that our product would have been offered in the market and up until this point. Because, even online, we're positioned at like 658. So I'm excited for the product to be sold at a lower price point.
Yeah. And where can our listeners follow you, help support, and most importantly, buy Wonder Monday?
Awesome. Yeah. So we can be found at wondermonday.com and we ship to all 50 states and we do limited edition drops every month. And so that's something that our community always really looks forward to. And you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Wonder Monday. And in retail, we're in a lot of West Coast specialty natural stores. So think like Bristol Farms, Lazy Acres, Molly Stone's in the Bay Area, Nugget in the Sacramento area, Market of Choice up in the Portland area. So all along the West Coast. And then we're also in central markets in Texas and Fresh Time in the Midwest. And then we're launching with a number of independents in the New York City area.
Oh, that's great. So exciting. And I'll definitely link those all in the show notes. And thank you so much, Candace, for coming on and telling your story and providing some great insight too on what it takes and what it looks like to be in retail stores.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.